I'm Dee Jackson. I've been foster care, same old child type bad history, and ended up on the streets, and had 4 kids by the time I was 21. By the time I was 30, I had 5 of them. 1 had died, and the rest had been taken into CPS, same system I came from. I became addicted to drugs and alcohol to numb that pain, and knew no skills, had no support, and had no family. So I was basically in survival mode for about 20 years straight. I went to prison twice, and I actually told the one person that I always looked up to in my life that I was a drug addict. I was born into the drug addict world. I would never be anything but a bartender or a waitress. And I was probably going to end up in prison more than a couple more times. I had accepted that about myself. And then I found myself going to prison for the second time at 39 years old, pregnant. And for some reason, this time, I got a little hope. I don't know why, but I just decided without a man or being codependent on anyone, I was going to be able to enjoy being a mother. I had quite a battle while I was inside trying to get visits, and became a little stronger with each battle. But when I got out, I went to work release, and my brother, the only relation I had 8 years younger that I had found recently in the past 10 years, overdosed in the jungle right here in Seattle. And I wasn't even out of work release yet to be able to deal with anything that needed to be dealt with. I relapsed. And I relapsed probably, last time out, so the worst ever. And I was on a prison-based DOSA sentence, which means you do have your time in, which I had done, but when you get out, you are under supervision. You only get a few chances to mess up, and I used up all 5 of those chances and 2 full hearings. Somewhere along the line, I got lucky and got my original DOC officer was the judge while I'm sitting in jail. So I asked to go to treatment, and they sent me to treatment, but I had no housing to come out to. And I knew if I went back to the area that I'd always been in, that I would be loaded by that night. So I came to Snohomish County, and I didn't know a street name. I didn't know a person, but I knew it was summer and I'd probably get a shelter bed. But that wasn't the case. I spent my only little bit of money in a motel for one night. Turns out it was the worst one in the area, but I didn't know that. And I called 211 the following day, and this woman named Rose says, "Yeah, I'm sorry, we have waiting lists for all the shelters, and even though it's in the middle of summer, because in King County, if you stand outside in line and you're first come, first served, you'll get a bed that night in a shelter." And I wasn't going to stay in a town I didn't know, but she told me about this event that was happening called Project Reunite that gets put on every year, and it has all the county's behavioral health and housing and nonprofits. And so I went through the whole thing. I ended up with another backpack besides the one I was already carrying, and no place to go. And right as I was walking out the door with my phone in my hand, I actually had my friend on the phone to come pick me up, and I'd be loaded the second I got in that car, and I'd be in prison right now during the rest of my time because I had 58 months left. And she said, "Hey, you might want to talk to this guy over here." And I saw this guy in a blue shirt, and all these people in blue shirts, and I'm like looking at, and they're handing out underwear and socks. I didn't think in a million years it'd be housing. And he looked like he had a beer belly. Later I found out it was a recovery belly, and a Bluetooth in his ear. And he asked me if I could pee in a cup, and I said yeah, and I had tears in my eyes. And if you're from where I'm from, weakness isn't ever a good thing to show, so that'll tell you how hopelessly desperate I was at the time. And he said, I have a couch for you. And I was like, oh God, here we go, because I didn't know he had houses. I just thought it was some guy that was going to give me a couch, And then he said house 2. And he took me to a house that was unbelievable. I couldn't believe what Robert Smiley had that day to give me. But they gave me a couch with no funding. And like he said earlier, he's really good at going into the woods and helping people and saving their lives, but the business part. But I'm pretty good at that part. So it started off with me trying to find resources for myself, and eventually I started trying to help find resources for people in his organization. He at that time was becoming a nonprofit, and so the first form of transportation was an old man in a two-door Honda that lived in the house, and we eventually ended up getting a van donated, and I scheduled for quite a while. But over the last 3 years, building this huge thing that is just a blessing to so many people and changed so many lives, it got big. It's real big, real fast. And when they were going to give up this house, I stayed with the house, and that meant I stayed with Courage to Change Housing. Courage to Change Housing is, I don't like to call it clean and sober. I call it a recovery house because it is about recovery. It's unified. Robert donated a bunch of food the other night, and 30 people cooked dinner together and ate dinner together without being told to. And that shows a strength together. I've lived in lots of Oxford houses, clean and sober houses, and they put me in a room and walked away. And it didn't take long. Sometimes it was the roommate that would get me loaded, I'm there every day with Chrissy. Chrissy and I are there every single day. And you can name any of the names, and I'll tell you what they're going through, and I can tell you how they're feeling. Because usually I can relate on one side or another of it. I will go to court, like Chrissy said, with the clients, because sometimes that support of having someone with you will make all the difference in your confidence. And when you hold yourself in confidence and you're doing right, and then you're in front of a judge that's seen you doing wrong, it makes a difference. And it has. I've seen people get into drug court when they've already failed it, and that's unheard of. I've seen women get their kids back that have lost 9 before, and now they have their daughter, and it's because of that we do what we do, Robert and I. We may not work side by side anymore, but we still do it, and he is the one that showed me the path to be able to do that, because if it wasn't for that couch without funding, I would have never been able to help the people I've been able to help. So you can't put somebody somewhere and say, hey, here, now you're out of the cold, fix your life. It just doesn't work that way, especially when you've been practicing doing it the wrong way for so long. You need a program to show you how to do that. And when you have a family that is in the cold, or the shelter's threatening to split the men and the women up, because that's what they do in the county that I'm at now, and that's what they do in a lot of the shelters here in King County. I know that for a fact. I've experienced it. They are unwilling to do that. And next thing you know, you have a family of 4 staying in a little car, and those are the people that need to go into these tiny homes. Oh, well, apartments would be even better. Absolutely, but we can't have people in the tiny homes that are using drugs, that are staying for a long, extensive amount of time, and not giving the opportunity for people to start rebuilding their lives and moving forward. And that's the plain, simple fact of the matter. It's a temporary solution, and the solution when it comes to people in recovery, or people who need to be in recovery, or mental health issues, or dual diagnosis, because I'm a dual diagnosis. I have bipolar as well. I'm manic bipolar. So along with the past drug history, on a bad day, it can be real bad, But when I went into one of Robert's houses, the first thing I did was go get a therapist, a psychiatrist, and I still see my therapist every week. I still go to my meetings, even though I'm not technically a client anymore. 4 mandatory meetings a week, you know. I still have a sponsor. I still do the programming. I do it outside my area because it's kind of hard with a bunch of clients in the room. You know, you do what you got to do to help people. And if you know you're doing right, even the hard days.